Media channels. Welcome to all of you tuning in through EWTN, Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, Salt and Light Media, Uganda Catholic Television, and at Madarshan TV, and to our radio listeners, some of you tuning in through Luminous Radio, and a warm welcome to all of you who may be picking up this broadcast through various digital platforms on the internet. My name is Sister Bernadette, and it's a pleasure for me to be able to provide the English language translation for you. So once again, we're gathered in the Hall of Blessing. This was built it was completed under Paul V, a Borghese Pope, and it's the work of Carlo Maderno, who was the architect of the Fabbrica of St. Peter's for 26 years. This facade stands on its own foundations and was built between 1608 and 1614. It stands atop the lower portion, and many of you may be familiar with one part of this Hall of Blessing, because this is how the Holy Father accesses the balcony from which he does the Urbi et Orbi blessing. So it's also called the Loggia of Blessings with the central balcony. We saw our Holy Father entering in a wheelchair. However, he then got up and is walking the rest of the way. Gathered here are the prefects and secretaries and other undersecretaries and directors of various Vatican dicasteries of the Roman Curia. There will first be a greeting on behalf of everyone given by Giovanni Battista Re, Dean of the College of Cardinals. Most Holy Father, on behalf of all present, I express to your Holiness heartfelt best wishes for Christmas, accompanied by a remembrance of you in prayer for your health and your intentions. I wish to express to you our shared sentiments of grateful appreciation for your tireless dedication and vigorous commitment to the Petrine service for the Church and the world in this 10th year of your pontificate. It's been a particularly difficult year because of the tragic wars going on in the world and the painful consequences, the horrors and inhuman suffering of so many peoples, who in many cases have been plunged into abject poverty and with their homes destroyed. So they're also without homes. Your Holiness has constantly repeated, Your Holiness, you have constantly repeated your condemnation of war, which is always a defeat for everyone and brings only death and destruction. Strong has been your warm appeal to be open to dialogue and a serious commitment to peace. Several times, almost in every speech, you have asked everyone to pray for peace. In the face of today's enormous problems and tragic, sorrowful situations, Your Holiness, you have done your utmost to make concrete solidarity and your heartfelt closeness to the people reach them in so many ways. Admirable has been and is your daily commitment with which Your Holiness has sought to be close to the suffering, to everyone's suffering. Also constant was the exhortation addressed to all members of the Church to bring the gospel to the society of our time with that pastoral charity which must permeate all our decisions and attitudes. The session of the General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops celebrated this past October, and which will have its concluding follow-up next year, represented a broad involvement of dioceses and various categories of people, inviting everyone to walk together with the gaze of Jesus. You also highlighted the need for a broad collaboration among bishops, priests, and laity, also seeking new ways, or trying to find new ways, but in the continuity of complete fidelity to the doctrine transmitted to us by the apostles. Your numerous international apostolic journeys, with many speeches and homilies in reference to various situations, local situations, have helped everyone reflect on current issues in different parts of the world, instilling encouragement and confidence in the future. Your trip for the World Youth Day in Lisbon had a particular echo in the world. We thank Your Holiness for the gift of the Apostolic Exhortation Laudate Deum, published on October the 4th, the feast of St. Francis, which once again highlighted the urgency of taking to heart our common home, which God the Creator has entrusted to us, and exhorting everyone to behave or to conform our actions on dialogue and close cooperation of all to overcome today's environmental and social challenges. Although your planned trip to Dubai did not take place, Your Holiness' message to COP28 greatly resonated with its heartfelt appeal for change in the area of safeguarding creation, an appeal for a new way forward together, joining forces and leaving divisions behind, because we are all in the same boat and we must row together. Thank you also for the apostolic letter for the 4th centenary of the birth of Blaise Pascal, and for the apostolic exhortation for the 150th anniversary of the birth of Saint Therese of Jesus, which calls to mind the little way of trust and love. The 10th anniversary of your Apostolic Exhortation Evangelii Gaudium was an occasion for Your Holiness to renew your invitation to intensify our commitment to the proclamation of the gospel to today's world, and to recover the missionary joy of the early Christians. The difficulties of the present hour are truly very great, but faith leads us to face them with Christian hope, and with the certainty that God is the Lord of history and the Lord of hearts. The world needs a religious reawakening and a vigorous revival of Christian life. We gather around you, Holy Father, renewing our commitment to service in close collaboration with you, and asking your apostolic blessing. Thank you, Holy Father. Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, greeting the Holy Father. And we now await the greeting of our Holy Father in return.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buongiorno.
Dear brothers and sisters, good morning. And above all, I'd like to thank Cardinal Ray for his words and also his energy, a 90-year-old with this energy. Keep moving ahead. Thank you. The mystery of Christmas fills our hearts with awe. This is the key word. With awe. At an unexpected message, God comes. God is here in our midst, and His light has forever pierced the darkness of the world. We need to hear and receive this message always anew, especially in these days tragically marked by the violence of war, by epochal risks posed by climate change, by poverty, by suffering, from hunger. There's hunger in the world, and all the wounds present now. It's comforting to discover that even in these painful situations and all the other places, God makes Himself present in this crib, the manger, where He chooses today to be born and to bring the Father's love to everyone. And He does this in God's own style, with closeness, compassion, and tenderness. This is God's style. Closeness, compassion, tenderness. Dear friends, we need to listen to the message of the God who comes. We need to discern the signs of His presence and to decide through His word to follow in His footsteps. Listen, discern, journey, or walk. These three verbs for our faith journey and the service we offer here in the Curia. I'd like to share these words with you by considering some main figures of the Christmas story. Listen, discern, and walk or journey. First, there is Mary, who reminds us to listen. The young woman of Nazareth, who holds in her arms the one who came to embrace the whole world, is the virgin who listened because she listened to the message of the angel and opened her heart to God's plan. She reminds us that the first commandment is, "Hear, O Israel," Deuteronomy 6:4, because more important than any precept is our need to enter into a relationship with God, accepting the gift of His love who comes to us. Listening in the Bible refers to hearing not only with the words, but also the involvement of the heart and therefore one's own life. Saint Benedict begins his rule with the words, "Listen attentively, O Son." Listening with the heart entails much more than simply exchanging information. It involves an interior openness, one that can perceive the desires and needs of others, a relationship that urges us to go beyond patterns and prejudices that at times lead us to pigeonhole those around us. Listening is always the beginning of a journey. The Lord asks His people to listen with the heart, to enter into a relationship with Him who is the living God. And this is how Mary listened, who received the message of the angel with complete openness, and so she doesn't conceal her turmoil. Rather, she opens her heart to the God who chose her, and she accepts His plan. There's dialogue and obedience. Mary understands she has received a priceless gift, and on her knees, that is, with humility and awe, she listened. to listen on one's knees. There's no better way to listen, because that means that we don't put ourselves before another person like we already know everything and understand. We open ourselves to the others, to the mystery, ready to receive with humility what he or she wants to tell us. And let's not forget that there's only one time when it's okay to look at someone from up above, only to raise the person up. It's the only time that it's okay to look at someone from on high. Sometimes, even when speaking among ourselves, we risk being like hungry wolves. We can devour the other person's words, not listening to them, and judging them, using our own judgments and ideas. Really listening to another person, however, requires interior quiet and making room for silence between what we hear and how we respond. It's not ping pong. There's room for silence, to understand, between listening and the response. First we listen, then in silence we understand and we reflect on it, interpret it, and only then are we ready to offer a response. And prayer teaches us how to do this because it expands the heart, overturns our egocentricity, shows us how to listen to others, and awakens in us the quiet of contemplation. Let us learn contemplation in our prayer, remaining on our knees before the Lord, but not only with our legs, but going on our knees with our hearts. Even in our work in the Kuria, we need to implore God's grace daily so that He might open our cold hearts and shake up our lukewarm and superficial existence. We need to recover a contemplative spirit that can help us to realize daily that we have been entrusted with a treasure which makes us more human and helps us to lead a new life. There's nothing better that we can give others. Brothers and sisters in the Kuria too, we need to learn the art of listening. It's even more important than our daily tasks and responsibilities, or even the positions we hold. We need to appreciate the value of relationships, to stop having formalities. They need to be marked by an evangelical spirit. Above all, being able to listen to one another with the heart and on our knees. Increasingly listening to each other free of prejudices, openly and sincerely with our heart and on our knees. Trying to listen to one another, trying hard to understand what our brother or sister is saying, to grasp his or her needs, and in some way, his or her own life, which lies behind the words, without judging. As Saint Ignatius wisely advises, let it be supposed that every good Christian is to be more ready to save his neighbor's proposition than to condemn it. If he cannot defend it, let him inquire how he means it. And if he means it badly, let him correct it with charity. If that's not enough, let him seek all the suitable means to bring him to mean it well and save himself. It takes a lot of work to understand another well. Let me repeat, listening is different from simply hearing. Walking the streets of our cities, we can hear many voices and a lot of noise, and yet we generally do not listen to them, internalize them, or let them stay within us. It's one thing just to hear, it's another thing to listen which also means to welcome within. Listening to one another or mutual listening helps us to adopt discernment as a method for our activity. Here, John the Baptist is a reference. First, Our Lady who listens, and now John the Baptist who discerns. We're all familiar with the greatness of this prophet, his austerity, and the forcefulness of his preaching. And yet when Jesus arrives and begins his ministry, John goes through a dramatic crisis of faith. He had proclaimed the imminent coming of the Lord as that of a mighty God, who would at last judge sinners by casting every tree that bears no fruit into the fire and burning the chaff with an unquenchable fire. This image of the Messiah shatters before Jesus' gestures, his words, and his style, before the compassion and mercy he shows towards everyone. And so the Baptist realizes that he needs to discern so as to receive new sight. As the Gospel tells us, when John heard in prison about the deeds of the Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you he who is to come, or shall we look for another?" In a word, Jesus was not what people expected, and even his precursor had to be converted to the newness of the kingdom. He had to have the humility and courage to discern. This is why discernment is important for all of us. As an art of the spiritual life, it can strip us of the illusion of omniscience, from the danger of thinking that it's enough to apply rules, from the temptation to carry on, even in the life of the Kuria, by simply repeating the patterns that have been done before, and in this way failing to realize that the mystery of God is always beyond us, and that the lives of people in the world around us will always remain superior to ideas and theories. Life is superior to ideas and theories, always. We need, then, to practice spiritual discernment, to seek God's will, to be sensitive to the deeper stirrings of our hearts, and then to assess our possibilities and the decisions we need to make. Cardinal Carlo Maria Martini wrote, "Discernment is quite different from the meticulous exactitude of those who live in legalistic conformity or with pretensions to perfection. It's something different. It's a burst of love that distinguishes between good and better, between what is useful in itself and what is helpful here and now, between what may be good in general and what needs to be done now." I close the citation from Martini. And he went on to say, "Failure to strive to discern what is best often makes pastoral life monotonous and repetitive. Religious actions are multiplied, traditional gestures are repeated without clearly seeing their meaning." Another citation from him, repetition. Discernment should help us, even in the work of the Kuria, to be docile to the Holy Spirit, to choose orientations and make decisions based not on worldly criteria or simply by applying rules, but according to the gospel. Listen to, as Mary, to discern like John the Baptist. And now the third word, journey, or to walk. And it's the Magi who remind us of this. And so we think naturally of the Magi. They remind us of the importance of walking, of journeying. The joy of the gospel, once we truly embrace it, leads to discipleship. A true exodus out of ourselves, setting us toward an encounter with the Lord and toward the fullness of life. an exodus out of ourselves. This is a behavior of the spiritual life we always need to examine ourselves on. The Christian life, let us remember, is not meant to confirm our sense of security, letting us settle into comfortable religious certitudes, offering quick responses to life's complex problems. On the contrary, whenever God calls, it always results in a journey, as He did with Abraham, with Moses, with all the disciples of the Lord. He sends us on a journey, draws us out of our comfort zones. He challenges us, He sets us free, He changes us, He enlightens the eyes of our hearts to make us understand the great hope to which He has called us. In the words of Michel de Certeau, mystics are those who cannot halt on the journey. Desire creates an excess. It exceeds, it surpasses it, it presses on. It makes us move forward to another place. In our service here in the Kuria too, it's important to keep moving forward, not to stop searching and growing in our understanding of the truth, overcoming the temptation to stand still, and to never leave the labyrinth of our fears, the confines of our fears. Fear, rigidity, and monotony make for immobility that has the apparent advantage of not creating problems. Just stay put, don't move, but which leads us to wander aimlessly within our labyrinths, to the detriment of the service we are called to offer the Church and the whole world. Let us remain vigilant against rigid ideological positions. Let's be careful fixating on ideology or obsession with ideology that often under the guise of good intentions separates us from reality and prevents us from moving forward. Instead, we're called to set out and journey like the Magi, following the light that always wants to lead us on, at times along unexplored paths and new roads. Let us not forget that the journey of the Magi, like every journey the Bible tells us about, always begins from above, with a call of the Lord, with a sign from heaven, because God Himself guides us to illumine the path of us, His children. So whenever the service we offer risks becoming dull, enclosed in the labyrinth of rigidity or mediocrity, whenever we find ourselves tangled in the web of bureaucracy or content just to get by, let's always remember to look up, to start afresh from God, to be enlightened by His Word, always to find the courage to start out again. Start out again, and let's not forget that you can only escape a labyrinth from above. This takes courage. It takes courage to walk forward, to journey forward. It's a matter of love, and it takes courage to love. I'd like to bring into this reflection something I once heard from a priest, which can also help us in our work in the Kuria. He said, it's not easy to rekindle the embers under the ashes of the Church. The difficulty today is to kindle passion in those who have long since lost it. 60 years after the Council, we're still debating the division between progressives and conservatives. And this isn't the difference. The real difference, or the central difference, is between lovers and those who've lost passion. Only those who love can walk. or only those who love can move forward. Brothers and sisters, thank you for your work and your dedication. In that work, may we cultivate the listening with the heart and serve the Lord by learning to accept and listen to one another. Let us practice discernment in order to be a church striving to interpret the signs of history in the light of the gospel, one that seeks solutions that communicate the Father's love. And let's always keep journeying forward with humility and awe, so we don't fall into the presumption of thinking we've arrived, lest the desire for God fade from our hearts. Thank you to all of you for the work you do silently. Let's not forget listening, discerning, journeying, walking forward. Mary, the Baptist, the Magi. May the Lord Jesus, the Word incarnate, grant us the grace of joy and humble and generous service. Please, may we never lose our sense of humor. This is healthy. Greetings to all of you and all of your dear ones, and I ask you please to say a prayer for me before the manger. Our Holy Father concludes his address to the Kuria in their exchange of greetings in 2023. Our Holy Father will now greet all of those here present after his blessing.
Aiuterium nostrum in nomine Domini. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, Filius, Spiritus Sanctus.
This, as we've heard, in the 10th anniversary of Pope Francis' pontificate, or in the year we've celebrated his 10th anniversary, meeting once again with his closest collaborators, those who serve in the various offices in the Roman Curia. We're in the Aula della Benedizione, the Hall of Blessing. Our Holy Father has gotten to his feet once again. We see him having moved closer now so he can greet all of those here present, beginning with Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, whom we heard give the greeting with the customary granting of a gift. We see 2 books being given to them, and with these images we now end this live broadcast of the Christmas greetings between Pope Francis and the members of the Roman Curia. I invite you to visit the Vatican News web portal, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts. You'll find coverage of today's news as well as other Vatican and world news. On behalf of Vatican Media, I'd like to thank our in-studio audio coordinator, Alessandro De Carolis, our technician, Patrizio Ciprari, our media partners, EWTN, Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, Salt and Light Media, Uganda Catholic Television at Madarshan TV, and Luminous Radio, and all who have made this broadcast possible. Thank you to all of you for joining us in this time that remains before Christmas. I wish you all of the blessings of the joy that this Christmas brings to us. Laudetur Jesus Christus, praised be Jesus Christ.
Voglio quella prova. Siamo come radio loro, tipo lui. aver detto sapienza sarebbe...